Hello, everybody. Oh, I am so excited for this YouTube Live. So, what we're talking about today is hopefully this is my final say on the matter. I'm just kidding. I'll talk about this forever. But I really wanted to show you and talk to you about Google Forms and why they are trash and why Airtable Forms really are the absolute best for your online coaching business. So, we're going to get into all of that today. If you are in the chat live, let me know if you're here. Just drop in the chat, say, hey, what you're looking forward to, and ask any questions you have about Airtable Forms, Google Forms, client data in general. We are going to dive into all of that today. If we haven't met yet, my name is Ashley. I am an Airtable and automation expert, and I absolutely love Airtable, especially for online coaching businesses and managing client data. It is so incredible, and we are specifically today going to be talking about all things forms. So for your forms, a lot of us, of course, if you have a coaching program, if you have one-on-one clients, if you have a mastermind, if you have a membership, you are using forms to collect client data. So you probably have onboarding forms, you have Q&A call forms, you have 6-month check-in forms. Like there's so many different forms that you have. Go ahead in the chat and let me know like what types of forms you have in your business. And a lot of us, like I remember using Google Forms when I was like planning birthday parties in high school. Like we just have used Google Forms for forever. And so often I see business owners really using Google spreadsheets and Google Forms because it's the only tool they really know how to use. It's intuitive, it's easy to use, it's easy to navigate. You can set up a quick Google form and send it out to your audience. However, there are just so many better options, and that is what we are using. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome, Valentina. It's so good to see you. So you're saying that you use Typeform. So very similar kind of vibe. You'll see what I have some thoughts on Typeform too, but I'm less anti-Typeform than I am Google Forms, and I'll walk through why in a moment. But really, there's just so much rich data that you have inside of your Google Forms, inside of Forms in general. And when you are not using Airtable, all of that form data is living in silos, and you're really just not using the form data with all of the different capacities and capabilities as you could. So I wanted to prove it to you and show you, because a lot of the times people are like, yeah, Ashley, I can make a Google form, I can make an Airtable form, they look the same. What's the difference? I wanted to just show you like the back end of Airtable and what you can do with the form data afterwards, because for sure, a Google form and an Airtable form can look very similar on the outside, on the client-facing side, but the stuff you can do with the data once you get it into Airtable, Google Forms cannot hold a candle to it. And I just, whenever I see a client or a future client putting a form on their Instagram stories, or if they're collecting like a audience survey and they're using a Google form, I shudder. I'm like, no, like you could be using Airtable forms and it would be so much better. And I'm going to show you exactly how it can be better. And let me share my screen and we will dive in. Share screen. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Yay. All right, you should be able to see this. So what we have here is, I wanted to show you just side-by-side comparison. Let me know in the chat if you can see this. Let me move our little chat. This is the beauty of going live. Fantastic. Okay, I think you can still see me. Can you still see this? Let's see. One sec. Yay, hi Katie. Let's see, I'm trying to reshare. My sharing is being super dramatic. Screen, window, entire screen. There we go, that's prettier. All right, fantastic. All right, so you should be able to see this now. So you should see that we're gonna start with onboarding forms, because all of us, if we have clients, we probably have some onboarding forms that we're handling. So like I said, it's pretty similar. They kind of are gonna look the same. Airtable, some people don't even know that Airtable has a form builder. So you can literally do a drag and drop form builder just like you can inside of Google Forms. So here is my Google form on the right, it's purple, my Airtable form on the left. So you can see I just made a very quick one, your name, your email, like starting point, rating your confidence. I have a whole training on how to be very strategic in your onboarding forms, because we really want to use your onboarding forms as like a starting point to really get like where they're at strategically, so you can measure their progress as they go along in your program and your one-on-one coaching offers. This is less about like this types of questions you should have in the form and just simply what you can do with the data afterwards. So you'll see here, the forms look pretty similar. One really cool thing about Airtable is that you can do a select your name from the drop-down option. So you can have all of your client names, and they can just select their name, and that's going to link their form data to what we call a primary student record. I'll show you what that looks like. Because what happens in Google Forms is all of the answers are just living in these individual Google Sheets. So you've got a Google Sheet for your onboarding form responses. You have a Google Sheet for your offboarding. You have a Google Sheet for the Q&A. But you can't see, right? You can't see, you'd have to like put all of those tables side by side and kind of cross-reference of like, okay, when did Ashley fill out her onboarding form and how many Q&A calls has she submitted, form questions has she submitted? Like, you just don't know the answers to those things, which is where Airtable really comes in. So if you've used Google Forms in the past, you can do this. And if you use Typeform, it's kind of the same thing. You can like see the data in these silos. So that's the first, like on face value, they look the same. But where we get crazy is the data side. So I'm going to open up the data, because instead of having all of these siloed spreadsheets like we do here on this Google side, in Airtable, you have all of the form tables in one table, and what we call a hub or a base. So you'll see my onboarding form is here, my Q&A call submission form is here, my end of module check-in forms are here. So these are all forms about that program, about that coaching offer, that are connected in one central base. So instead of having all of these individual siloed spreadsheets and individual siloed Google Forms that are just kind of like gathering dust, you have all of the data centralized in one place inside of Airtable. And then I mentioned that little drop-down option that you can like link the person. You can link the form to the person. Then that's where we can see really cool things such as, let me hide this. So we've got their onboarding form, we've got the Q&A, call submission form, question submitted, cool. So every form that person has ever filled out is connected to that person's client record. Already, like Google Forms cannot do that. So you can build the forms literally as easily in Airtable as you can in Google Forms, but then you get to connect them to a client profile, and that's where the magic really starts to happen. Because with our onboarding form, we can do a little quick, it's called a lookup field. Let's see, onboarding. Let's see, fantastic. I'm going to make what's called a lookup field. So I'm going to say onboarding form date filled out. We can look up little pieces of information. So we can say in the onboarding form, we can say, I think it's called completed date. And I want to look up the date that they completed the onboarding form. So again, we're like looking up these like really like very specific pieces of data related to the form to really add some, to just give us more context. So we have their onboarding date that they've submitted, which we can see through the form. And then we also, with their Q&A calls, we can see the last time they submitted a question. So you could pop open test person 5 and say, okay, like they submitted their onboarding form June 17th. The last time that they've submitted a form is March 24th. You can have that data like at your fingertips, which as a coach, it is so important to have that. And if you can have this data by using Airtable, why the hell would you ever use a Google form? So there's just so much incredible data you can have about your clients that is just like sitting and truly gathering dust inside of your Google Forms, that if you put it in Airtable, it would just be so much easier. I'm going to pull up the chat really quick and just make sure I can answer any questions before I share some of the other stuff that I've got. But yeah, let me know if that's helpful, because this is so huge. Like just like it's so important just to have everything centralized. That's one of the biggest things. Katie said, did you cover how to start a client profile? So we're mostly just talking Google Forms, or like the actual forms of it all, Katie, but I'll show you what we're kind of how I'm showing you the like last question submitted and all of that. That's kind of like the building out of a client profile, because technically what all a client profile is being able to pull out and like centralize all of this form data. So let me share again. Fantastic. Beautiful. Okay, cool. So like what Katie is talking about is a client profile. So you cannot, again, you can't make a client profile in Google Forms, but because all of the data is inside of your group offer hub or your client hub, you can pull all of those persons like forms that they've ever submitted. So let me do that. I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to add an interface. I'm going to call it client profiles. Record review. So I think you can kind of start to see, like, as I'm building an Airtable, you can see like the holistic picture of like, it's just so much easier to like navigate and see all of your data in one spot rather than having them siloed inside of Google Forms, which is like, I hate Google Forms so much. So we're going to say client profile. So we've got the person's headshot, their name, their status, their cohort, but then we can bring in their different forms. So we've got their onboarding form. We've got their Q&A calls, questions submitted. So this is like you pull them up and you can see absolutely everything about them because it's all centralized. So we're going to say number of questions submitted. This person submitted 3. The last question that they've submitted. Yep, the last date. So all of that is here. So again, all of this information exists in your Google Forms, but you can't access it in this holistic way, which is why it's so important to divorce Google Forms, break up with Google Forms, and move all of your forms into Airtable. So what I would really recommend as a first start for anybody who hasn't used Airtable before or is like really married to their Google Forms, I'm using a lot of married and divorced language, maybe because I just got divorced. But what you do is for each of your Google Forms, you basically just create a new table from scratch. So you have a table and it'll just be called like form, I don't know, whatever form you have, income report form. So each form is going to have its own table. And then you're just going to simply build out the form right inside of Airtable. So you can click new form. You'll pick the table, so like our income report form. And what I like to do when you're migrating Google Forms for the first time is literally pull it up side by side, pull up your existing form or your existing type form, and you can just really start to build it. So you select the right field. Something else that's really helpful about Airtable and when it comes to Airtable versus Google Forms is that there are so many different field types, way more relevant field types than just like an open empty box. So if you have email, there is an email field. Inside of Google Forms, you just have a like long text field or a short text field. They don't have as many options, I don't think. At least let me see when I was trying this. Let's see. I cringe going into Google Forms. Let's see. Add a question. Yeah, you have very few options. So short answer, paragraph, multi-choice, checkbox, drop down, file upload. There's those things which are nice, but like phone number, email, not there. And with Airtable, you can really just like give your data a little more structure by picking the form type. So you can just build those like that. Asha says, do you build a primary student record for each base? You sure do. So for each coaching offer and all of your forms, you're going to build a primary student record, and then your forms link to that client record. So every form that you have links to the client. And that's what's missing with Google Forms, is the ability to link them all back to like one person's primary student record. So you're getting out of that form data living in silos, and instead you're centralizing everything in one base, and then you're connecting it to the primary student record. Exactly, Asha. So you'll just simply build the forms here. Very simple, very straightforward. So I would really play with doing that. And I would also do the same thing if you are using something like Typeform. So Valentina is using Typeform. A lot of the times people are in Typeform for aesthetics. So they're like, Google Forms are ugly as hell. Airtable Forms aren't like that much better, but they're decent. I like the look of Airtable Forms more than I like the look of Google Forms. However, if you want a really beautiful, robust, powerful form builder that does the same type of stuff that we're doing with Airtable, I would, instead of using Typeform, I would recommend using a app called Fillout. So I'm gonna share with you about Fillout in a little bit. I want to talk about automations first. But if you're like looking at these Airtable forms and you're in Typeform and then you're like, this is not as aesthetic and as powerful as my Typeforms, can I still use Airtable? The answer is yes. And I'll walk you through what that looks like in a second. So we have the form builder. You can totally play around and do some light customization on this. But something else that's really cool about Google Forms, which again is just not as possible with what's really cool about Airtable Forms that's not as possible with Google Forms, is the opportunity to do automations based on the forms. So if I go into automations here, you can see, and by the way, all of this is available on the free plan, so you don't have to have the paid plan of Airtable to do anything I'm about to show you. But you can say, when new onboarding form submitted, send client email. You can set up an automation right inside of Airtable that says, when a form is submitted, when my onboarding form is submitted, send an email. So you can send an email, you can send a Slack message, but you can send an email and say, hey, like, it's been like, I've received your onboarding form, here are your next steps. Or you can, so those are like very straightforward. You can also send emails to your team. An onboarding form is received, please send them their welcome gift. Like, what are those little touch points that you use to alert your team that forms have been submitted, to alert the client that you received them? Those are really easy automations that you can build right inside of Airtable. Again, you'd have to involve Zapier, and you'd have to involve like way more automations, and annoying headache using your Google Docs or your Google Forms. So another reason why Airtable is so great for this. Another really cool thing you can do with the automations is that you can actually build automations based on when people have filled out forms and haven't filled out forms, or when they've last filled out a form. So for example, you can say, I want to, when a record matches a condition, when my student, when their start date is 7 days ago and their onboarding form is still empty, you can send them an automated email and say, hey, Ashley, I noticed it's been a week since you've joined the program and you haven't filled out your onboarding form. Please go to this link and fill that out. So that type of stuff is really huge, especially as you're scaling your coaching offer, because you want people to feel like you still love them, you still care about them, you're still thinking of them. But as you grow, you're not going to be able to keep everybody and like where they're all at in your head. And so you can set up these type of automated check-ins based on the forms that they've filled out or haven't filled out, and remind them and give them these gentle nudges that they should fill those out. So that's a really cool thing that you can do. So you can say, that's a good one for your onboarding form, but you could also say when the last question that they've submitted, let's see, date. Is 1 month ago. So we'll say, if the last question that they submitted in the Q&A call form is a month ago, send them an email and say, hey, it's been a while since we've seen you submitted a question and like used this part of the program. This is a really great way to get involved, to stay in touch, to make sure you're still getting results. So please go ahead and use that. People feel so cared for and seen when you are using this, when you're setting up these automations. They're so simple to set up, but really think about, what are the checkpoints? How do I want to make people feel seen and cared for? And based on their interactions with your forms, you can play with all of these, like just truly countless automations to make people feel seen and cared for. Again, you can't do that in Google Forms. So why are we still there? Why are we still in Google Forms? If anyone still is using Google Forms, I would love to hear in the chat what you're using it for and why. I've never met somebody who really is like using Google Forms in a way that I'm like, oh yeah, like you definitely should stay there. I've never ever let anybody stay in Google Forms. The only time I've ever let somebody like stay in something like Typeform is if they have, if it's already super built out, branded, it's technically okay. But what you'd want to do is you'd want to set up a zap to zap all of your Typeform data into Airtable. So it really depends. If you're like, I don't want to migrate my Typeform, you'd migrate Typeform forms to fill out, and I'll get into the fill out demo in a second. You would migrate that, but you could at least build out all of your automations. Say when there's a new Typeform answer, go and add it to Airtable automatically. It's just so easy to rebuild Google Forms that it doesn't make any sense to keep your Google Forms and zap them in. I would just always rebuild those right into Airtable. But if you're using Typeform and you have them super branded and already integrated, then I'm a little more lenient on that. Yes, Asha, why are you using Google Forms? Is it because you didn't know that Airtable, it was possible for Airtable to do this? Are you seeing now kind of why it makes sense to use Airtable Forms? There's for sure no shame about using Google Forms, because oftentimes it's really just like people thought that they were similar. Like they look similar enough on the front end, but the back end is so powerful that that it's worth making the switch. Said mainly because it's easy and I didn't know what else to use. Now that I've been indoctrinated into your Airtable community, I'm a convert, but need to learn how to maximize tools. Yeah, Asha, that's it. So great. Welcome to the fold. Yeah, Google Forms are easy, but I think that Airtable Forms are also easy once you know exactly how to use them. So you will just truly do the side-by-side drag and drop. I also don't have that many clients coming in yet, so I'm getting ahead of myself. When the clients come in, I'll be prepared, a well-oiled machine for sure. Use Airtable. Airtable and Airtable Forms are something that you should use even if you have, like, you're preparing for your first client, because again, it's so easy to build that every time you're about to open up a Google form, please have me on your shoulder and be like, should I build this in Airtable instead? And the answer is yes. It's kind of like this muscle memory that a lot of times people are just used to creating a quick Google form because I'm in a rush. It is as fast to build an Airtable form. So just really start to play with your Airtable forms instead of defaulting to Google Forms. So Asha, specifically for you, with your coaching clients, as you're building your coaching offer, have a coaching client hub, and all of your forms, you're just going to build them as different tables right inside of that coaching form. So move your Google Forms over to Airtable, and then as you start to get your clients, you are going to thank yourself, because there's just so much that you can do. Because once you get those 5, 10, 15 clients, you'd much rather be able to like set up these quick automations instead of having to migrate all of your forms, all of your form data into Airtable. Like you just want to really, this is the right foundation. So I love when people have no clients or a few clients. That is the best time to start setting up your Airtable setup, because it's really going to be able to scale with you. Beautiful. Yes, I have a few set up in Airtable. I'll send them out this weekend. Amazing. Yep. Great. Love it. And the biggest rookie mistake that I see is really, I want you to have all of your Airtable, all of your forms that are related to that coaching offer, keep it in one base. So don't make different bases for all of these individual forms. You want them all in the same base, so then you can connect them all to a primary student record. And so then you can see kind of like the overview of everything there. So that's just something, as you're navigating and as you're setting up these for the first time, that's what you'll want to do. Okay, I wanted to briefly show you Fill Out as well. Fill Out is one of my favorite other tools. I live, laugh, love Airtable, but Fill Out is just a great partner to Airtable. So if you go into Fill Out, and again, Fill Out is a form builder, very similar to Typeform, but it's just like way more robust than Airtable. So I wanted to see, I'm going to go make a Fill Out, and I'm just going to show you exactly what this looks like. Something that I absolutely love about Fill Out that Typeform can't do is you start with Airtable first. So you literally are going to connect your Airtable to the Fill Out integration. And then let me do this. Tester Buffer Hub. So you're actually creating, I'm going to say test onboarding form. Continue. So you're actually creating like all of these fields over here. These are all Airtable fields. So you're creating the field in Airtable first, and then you're dragging it over into fill out to build out your form. So it just like you start with Airtable the same way that you normally would if you were making an Airtable form, but this just makes it very seamless. So like this answer is going to go right into your Airtable base without any zaps, any zaps required. Typeform gets really obnoxious when you if you add a new question into Typeform, you'd have to adjust your zap. Their Airtable integration isn't great, and it's just like pretty glitchy. And so it's not seamless. You're going to have to do a lot of double checking to make sure that all the data that's in Typeform is going right into your Airtable base. But what's so cool about fill out is you start with the Airtable fields first. So let's say I'm making my fill out form and I have a question that I want to add to my onboarding form. What you do is you have Airtable up side by side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new field, and I'm going to have it called test new question, right? So I'm building out the field here. And then if I refresh the fields over here inside of fill out, I should see new question. That should come up. Let's see, test new question, onboarding form. Let's see, I'm going to refresh it. I might have my integration messed up, but theoretically it should come up right here. So you would want to move and build and over here. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it should work. I think I picked the wrong base, but basically you build out you build out the fields over in Airtable, and you refresh this, and you should see those integrations pop up. So what I like about this too is you can't add images or videos into a Google form or into an Airtable form, but you can inside of fill out. And I can adjust the theme here so I can make it more branded. Like you can really play around with what you want this to look like. It's just has that flexibility. Something else that it does is you can have different pages. So if you have a doc, or you have a form that has a bunch of different pages, that's how somebody uses Typeform. You can have lots of pages. You can have different conditional pages, so sending them to different things. You can have a cute little ending with next steps. The one thing just to note is I'm actually on the free plan of fill out. I do not pay for it. All of these things you can do for free, but it does have this. If you want to get rid of this, make your own form, you have to pay for it. I don't mind, but that's sometimes just an aesthetic preference that people have. So I absolutely love fill out. It's something that if you're in Typeform or if you're in one of those more intense builders, fill out is just by far the best option for that. And it really marries the two together. So as soon as somebody fills out these sections, it's going to go right into your Airtable forms, just like you could. Alex says, can you change the typography in fill out? I believe you can. Yeah, so the fonts here, it's all the Google font options. So if I wanted to change it to Oswald, let's change it to this, you can adjust that. So you can adjust those things. There's just a lot of other, you can adjust the rows if you want this to be 2 rows, or if you want it to be 10 rows of you can really adjust these things. You can do half width. You can do logic and validation. So if you only want certain fields to show up for different sections, you can play with that. The options are endless with fill out. They're really, really cool. I will probably do a fill out secrets video at some point if that's interesting, because there's just simply so many things you can do with it. But when you can say select your name from the drop down, and you can say Ashley selects her name from the drop down here. So you could find their name. And then you can it can reference Airtable data all if they select their name and it's hey, Ashley, hope you've been doing well. You've submitted 5 tickets over time. It can look up the data in Airtable and reference it and pop it up in the Airtable form into the fill out form, which is really cool. It feels like magic. So that's, we love it, love it. Let me look at more integrations. Technically, you can sync this to Google Sheets. Please do not use fill out and Google Sheets together. Do not use fill out and Notion together, simply because of all of the reasons why what you can do with the Airtable data, the form data afterwards. So those automations of being able to send them emails when they've submitted the form, or emails when they've like based on certain conditions with their relationships with the forms. So that's my main presentation for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. I think the biggest thing that I see when coaches are getting started is that they only see the tip of the iceberg, right? They only see the front end. They're like, oh yeah, a Google form and an Airtable form, they basically look the same, right? Like, I know Google Forms enough, I'm familiar with them. Like, let me just make a quick Google form. But you're really limiting yourself with all of the amazing things you can do with the data afterwards. And so that's my biggest thing, is that Airtable and your client data, like your client data deserves to be an Airtable because of all of the automations. It's going to help you be a better coach because you will see all of their information at a glance. It's going to make people feel like seen and cared for. It helps with so many different customer service issues. If you have a customer service complaint, you can pop open your student record and you can say, hey, you haven't submitted a question in 3 months. Like, you haven't achieved this result yet, but you're $2,000 away from hitting the program promise. Because you have everything centralized, you are going to be like the best coach in your industry. Anybody who is not using Airtable and is not using Airtable Forms is going to fall behind, I promise you, because of the things that we can do with Airtable and all the amazing data. So if you have any questions about Airtable Forms, fill out, Typeform, Google Forms, go ahead and drop those in now. We are going to do a giveaway at the end of every YouTube live. We do a giveaway. So I have a template shop, which we do live trainings, we do templates. I live for everything Airtable. So we have different workshops: creating your content management hub in Airtable, collecting your client results and tracking your testimonials. Those are all forms. Setting up an automated sales hub, so all of your sales go into one central spot in Airtable. Creating a call hub in Airtable so you can manage all of your client calls in one place. I do not use a single spreadsheet in my business. I do not use a single Google form in my business. And I am so organized because I really use Airtable for everything that's possible. I know somebody in the chat mentioned that they want to like use their tools as effectively as they can. Airtable can do so much for you. It is one of the most powerful tools you can use in your business. Every single coach needs it. I'm glad this was helpful for y'all. So I'm going to close my eyes, go into the chat and see. I think there might be, hopefully no one here has already won before. And if you do win, DM us on Instagram at Systems Over Stress, and we'll get you set up with a code. Let's see, who do we got? Okay, yay, it's Asha. Awesome. Asha, I know you already have some of our templates, but go ahead and email us at Systems Over Stress and you'll get a code to redeem for any of our workshops. And I'm super excited that you're here. Thank you so much. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and ask us any questions about forms. I will be in the comments. And we will see you in the next live.